I just remember hearing the biggest explosion of all time. You know, I used to host a show called On Cars doing car reviews. And the neat thing about On Cars is that every week I'd have a new car. It would be a car from a manufacturer. It would get dropped off on a Friday. I'd pick it up, I'd drive it over the weekend, kind of start to formulate my script, my thoughts, what I was going to say about the car. We'd film it during the week. It would go into the studio at the end of the week and get all the beauty shots done. And then come next Friday, we'd drop it off and there'd be a new something or other that I'd get to go spend time with. So it was really a dream job. In this story, I was driving an A4, the new B8 A4 when that had just come out. When we were in the office, knowing the car was coming, we're trying to think of story ideas. Well, how can we present this car and make it exciting? And one of the producers came up with the idea to shoot it with an airplane. He followed the Red Bull Air Races Championship, and one of the pilots in that series was an Audi sponsored guy, had Audi logos on the airplane. And he's like, wouldn't it be cool if we had some shots of the airplane in the car? And that very quickly turned into some shots of the car driving with the airplane flying, which quickly turned into the car sliding and the airplane. And so I'm a huge aviation buff. My dad was a flight surgeon in the Navy. My little brother's a Navy pilot. I just grew up around air shows and airplanes, and I love airplanes. Not quite as much as I love cars, but I love airplanes. We contact the gentleman. And the gentleman is a guy named Mike Mangold, two-time Red Bull Air Races world champion, I think 05 and 07. At the time, the winningest Red Bull Air Races pilot, maybe still today. Air Force Academy graduate, F4 Phantom, badass pilot, flew the F4 Weasel as well, Wild Weasel. Just a legend of a pilot. So we go out to an airport in the middle of nowhere in California, Apple Valley Airport, and we're shooting. And so I remember, like, again, being an aviation buff, like we had a little brief before we went out, and it was like the Blue Angels, dude. We're talking about like, okay, so I'm gonna be here and you're gonna be here. And I'm super geeking out about being with this badass and, you know, for choreographing what we're gonna do. And the director's like, can you do it? I'm like, yeah, I can do it. We were gonna slide the car into frame. So that camera's gonna be aiming down a runway. I'm gonna come down a taxiway. I'm gonna do a big Scandinavian flick, throw the car into a slide and come into view with the car sliding as the pilot is in the air doing a tail drag, which is kind of like the tail sliding in the air behind me, which sounded amazing, right? And to get this A4 to you know, do the Scandi flick and slide into frame long enough that it's a cool shot, I'm doing 80, 85 miles an hour, big Scandi flick, and then coming into frame sideways. So camera's facing down the runway, I'm way the heck over here, and the airplane's somewhere in the sky. Action! I'm ripping on the gas, get to the speed, time the move, big Scandi flick into frame sideways. We do the first one, I'm happy with my slide, I have no idea where the airplane is. The director yells, cut! Emile, the timing was off. And I'm like, I went when he said action. Back to one where we start the scene, right? I drive back to my spot, stop. All right, guys, let's try to get the timing right. I'm thinking this is like a general statement, right? And he's like, yeah, we have the timing wrong. He kept saying, we. I'm thinking, you got a mouse in your pocket? Because I'm going when you tell me action, right? Action, same thing. Big Scandi flick, I'm hanging onto the thing, beautiful. Airplane was behind me like 3-4 seconds. Emile, the timing is not right. The director, a guy named Rick, awesome guy. We were like brothers, which is kind of why like we would have some contentious arguments. I would say some contentious heated battles because we got along so well. He had a driving background. Awesome guy, love him to death, but we'd go at each other sometimes. So he's yelling at me that I've got the timing wrong. So finally I pick up the radio. I'm like, Rick, I'm going when you say action. So adjust when you say action. I can't see the airplane. He's somewhere behind me. Do another one. We screw it up again. Separately, we do the right things, but it's not in sync. And finally, he goes, if I know I can do it, if I can do it, you should do it. I'm like, you son of a bitch. No, you didn't. So I pull up to him, throw the thing in park, and an argument ensues. Meanwhile, Mike is circling in the airplane in a Red Bull Air Races, and Edge 540 was the airplane. So the gas tank is relatively small because it doesn't have to be in the air long. He's waiting on us to have this measuring contest that we're having about, can I do the scene or not? Finally, Rick just, well, forget it. Let's just move on to the next thing. And now, by the way, stay in the car. So we moved to doing static shots. And so I'm parking the car relative to the camera wherever he wants it. The first shot we did was a 3/4 front shot. And instead of jumping out of the car and then when it's time to move it, getting back in the car, moving, he's like, just duck down. I'm like, awesome. I get to stay in the comfortable car, right? With the car running. So I'm sitting in the car, and one of the first things we did, we had Mike coming down the runway doing, I think it's called the scissors, where he's just kind of going back and forth with the airplane, almost like a manji and drifting. And he timed it so that when he got to the car, he just flies around the car. And dude, Again, as an airplane buff, let me tell you, he was getting so close that I could hear the prop cutting through the air, like tearing the air, just as he'd go by me. It was so freaking cool. And in fact, I was down low in the seat and I turned the mirrors so that I could see him coming, right? So that you couldn't see my head in the shot. So we do that shot. It was awesome. I turned the car facing dead straight into the camera. So camera crew's in front of me. My car's facing dead straight. I'm hunkered down. I've turned the mirrors. And now he's coming up behind me at 200, 250 knots. I mean, he's on it, but you can't see him. You just see the car and he's, off the runway. And at the last second, he pulls straight up and reveals the Audi logo on the wings. Super badass idea of a shot. So he comes and does it. And as soon as he pulls up, the ground effect just shakes the car. And I'm just giggling like a little girl in the car. It's the coolest day ever at work. And Rick's like, that was awesome. Can you get a little closer? And I'm like, oh, shit. It already felt like he was on top of me, but all right, whatever. He's going to get closer. So I'm hunkered down. I've got the mirror turned. Just like that natural instinct you do when you flinch when something's close. At the last second, I'm looking in the mirror and I'm seeing the spinner on the prop and he pulls up. So at the moment, I just remember hearing the biggest explosion of all time. And look, grew up racing motorcycles and cars. If you're racing professionally, you're going to crash stuff, put it nicely. And I've crashed stuff. This was the biggest accident. It felt like the biggest accident I'd ever been in. Massive explosion. And I just remember going, like I'd already kind of like flinched and closed my eyes and then wow, this explosion. And I remember thinking, oh shit. And I'm not sure what's going on. And I open my eyes and I just see clouds. And the thought, again, when I replayed it back was, I died. I'm dead. This is what it's like to be dead. And I can't hear anything. I just see these clouds and I'm like, oh, and my mind's going, wait a minute, how did I die? How? And then all of a sudden the clouds start dissipating and I start to see windshield and I'm looking out and it doesn't compute. And I'm like, wait, what? And I can't hear anything. It still feels like I'm in this other state. And then all of a sudden I hear, wee! My ears are ringing. Like all of a sudden it just came on and now it hurts. And I'm like, and I'm still piecing it together. I'm like, what is going on? And I'm looking around and I have no clue what happened. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking the concussion from the air blast, the ground effect must have triggered an airbag maybe. Yeah, that's what the smoke must be. And as I'm sitting here trying to figure out what the hell just happened to me, I see movement here and I look and it's my director, Rick, and he's going, and I can't, because I can't hear anything, right? And he's basically saying, are you okay? Are you okay? And all of a sudden I kind of start to hear him a little bit. My hearing starts to come back, but the ringing is still happening. My head is throbbing. And I hear the radio and I look down, I pick up the radio and it's Mike on the radio going, is Emile okay? Is the driver okay? Is Emile okay? Is the driver okay? And I'm like, wait, what? And I look in front, some of the camera crew are there, the camera's still standing and I have no idea what the hell happened. And then my arm starts to hurt and I look down and I've got a little bit of blood in my arm. I'm like, what the? I get out of the car, I realize all the airbags have deployed. Here's what happened. We're doing the shot, he's getting a little closer, he pulls up. And for whatever reason, I mean, this is a massively accomplished pilot. It would be like hiring Mario Andretti to do drive-bys in a car and he accidentally, hits you with the wing mirror, with the rearview mirror. As he pulled up, the left wing dipped just a little bit and the gear, it's got fixed gear, the landing gear strut, aluminum strut, and then the gear with a carbon fiber fairing, the gear hit the back of the car at the C-pillar. Now, you and I both know the strongest part structurally of a car is the base of the C-pillar because of rollovers. He hit so hard toward the top of the C-pillar that it buckled the base of the C-pillar. Now, what was amazing to me and what I couldn't comprehend at the time was how the hell is he still flying this little lightweight airplane? The car had no idea what happened. The car was running in park with a slob sitting in the driver's seat. It recognized someone was sitting there, but because of the impact and the forces it felt, it deployed every airbag. It just said, I have no idea what's going on. I'm dropping everything. All four windows were just instantly opened a little bit to help dissipate the blast from the airbags, right? The rocket engines or rocket propellant. That was cool in of itself. So I get out of the car, I look at the car, and I'm like, I still can't believe it. I look up and I see the airplane flying, and I'm like, okay, so he must have massive damage. The freaking airplane landed and taxied perfectly fine. The only thing that happened to the airplane, a piece of carbon fiber off the fairing from the left gear, about the size of the palm of my hand, broke off. That was it. The airplane taxied, true, whatever else. But Mike obviously was shaken. I mean, I was shitting myself, but he was pretty shaken up. I came over just to make sure that everybody was fine. That's what he was shaken about, nothing else. But I heard that, because we had two people closing the runway. It's a small airport, and this guy's a god in this airport anyway. He's a god in the aviation community anyhow. But I think that the people that were managing the runway were persuaded to forget what might have happened, I'll say. I was closest to our studio on my drive home to San Diego, and so they gave me the drive with all the footage, and footage that we're not going to use, and we're not going to ever show any of this, right? And so I remember driving home, and it's now like 3 a.m. because of all the BS that happened, and the airport was in the middle of nowhere. And I'm passing the studio. I stop in the studio, and I go to put the drive in the safe, and I thought, wait, we're not ever going to see this footage? My ass. I went to my computer, plugged in the drive, and watched the footage because I wanted to see the impact. And essentially, the gears like this, when he hit, it deflected about 3 or 4 feet on the aluminum strut, and the airplane was out of frame by the time it came back, but obviously it came right back and was fine. And he was so close. It was so amazing. First, we got in a ton of trouble from Audi. It was a press car from Audi. We weren't cleared to really do that with it. We may have said we were going to shoot with an airplane. We didn't say we were going to shoot with a flying airplane. They might have frowned down upon that. So we got in trouble. We got in hot water with Audi. Our boss at On Cars was not pleased with us at all. I thought I was about to lose my dream job. And we heard about it the next day. To his credit, Mike Mangold wanted to buy the car, to buy the footage. And we were never going to release that footage anyway. But I'm talking to him in the end of the night, and I'm still like trying to comprehend what happened. I go, Mike, explain this to me. How does an airplane hit a car and it keeps flying? And, he's like, mass times speed. He's trying to explain force to me, right? Like, should have paid more attention in physics. But he felt really badly, even though all things considered, it worked out okay, right? Nobody was hurt. But he had an Aero L-29 Delphine, I want to say. It's a Soviet era, Czechoslovakian built jet trainer that he had more than doubled the thrust on. So I guess he and another pilot had developed this version of it called the Viper, and that's what he had. And he's like, look, anytime you want, come up, we'll go for a ride in the L-29, which as an aviation geek, I get to go up in a fighter? Hell yes, or in a jet trainer. I never got around to doing that, and tragically, and so I remember being so sad and so moved reading the paper several years later that in that airplane, in the L-29, he was giving somebody a ride, Apple Valley Airport, had an engine failure, I believe it was, on takeoff, and they crashed and they both passed away. Same exact runway that we were shooting at. So just a tragic loss. And the guy could not have been, firstly, I don't need to tell you about his accomplishments. You can look him up. He was a superstar, badass, but could not have been kinder and more pro about how he handled the whole thing with us. So to hear that that's how it ended was sad. I do wish I would have gotten a ride in that jet. That would have been incredible. I think I missed an opportunity to go up in a cool airplane and do some cool stuff. But that's a story, man. That's one. Again, if I didn't have photos, because who's going to believe that? You got hit by an airplane and you lived? Yeah, right. True story.
At Dollar Shave Club, you're always in control. Simply choose the delivery dates and frequency that suits your schedule so you don't run out. Get a shave, shower, or oral care starter set for just $5 at dollarshaveclub.com.